Well, we've had some football over the weekend, and we don't just talk about the games played. We like to go in depth and talk tactics. So, for this special stream, it's time to delve into the Coach's Corner for another episode of Coach's Tactics. Yes, people, welcome once again to the corner. And we are, of course, going to talk about a certain game that was played on Sunday, which obviously gripped a great deal of attention. Not exactly an early kickoff, which wasn't necessarily ideal, but, as long as people got to see that and discuss that, it was probably more than enough. And obviously, despite only getting a point, Spurs quite deservedly took bragging rights from that game. And as for us, we're left to lick our wounds and wonder where we went wrong and where we can possibly go from here. Now, we will, of course, get into the discussion, but first, let's welcome a guest. And it isn't Hanno because he's not a guest. He will be joining us very soon as the rugby gets over. In fact, the latest score from the rugby, it is, of course, Uruguay and Namibia who are playing, and we're going to find out how much time is left. And they are actually ahead 36-26, but there were two players from the Namibian team sent off. So it made it quite a bit easier for the Uruguayans who were actually behind. And Namibia did actually take the lead. Of course, they are already eliminated, but Uruguay could possibly... They needed a bonus point win today, and I don't know if they'll be able to get it. But actually, they do have the bonus point for scoring 4 tries. So if they do get a bonus point in their next game, they could reach the quarterfinals. We'll see how the permutations work themselves out. But we do have another guest, and it gives me great pleasure, of course, to welcome back to the channel, because I think he's done a few streams with Hanno before, Kyle Howie from Football Overseas. Good evening, Kyle. How are you? And welcome once again.
I'm good, thank you. And you?
Yep, can't complain. And some of you will know that I'd already done a couple of streams with Kyle on his channel for the European previews and predictions, and pretty good fun. We discussed the teams in question, and certainly the European games have provided some really good action. But this week, of course, it's all about the League Cup. Not exactly the marquee game that we would like, but of course, I do believe Manchester United played yesterday and secured a morale-boosting win over Crystal Palace, who sadly had their ex-United goalkeeper Dean Henderson substituted due to injury. And so tonight we're on our way to the Community Stadium to play Brentford. Goodness knows how that's going to go. And in the chat, as usual, we've got one of our best friends, Chelsea fan. Big up to you. And another reminder, please keep hitting at the like button. So, yeah, as I said, Hanno will be joining us in a matter of minutes. But before we actually get onto the main topic, let me ask you as well. Obviously, prior to beating Crystal Palace in the League Cup yesterday, you also did secure a morale-boosting victory against Burnley. Granted, Burnley haven't really set the Premiership alight, but after the run of form, I think Kyle probably must have some problems with his Wi-Fi at the moment, and we will wait for him to come back. But in the meantime, what I am going to do is I am going to sort of share a recap of the Premiership results from the weekend. And yeah, just trying to see if things are working right now. And so there were 2 games that were played on a Oh,
Yes, so
yeah, good to have
sorry.
you back.
I must have misclicked. I closed the window by mistake. I was trying to close
Well,
other things.
it happens. It happens. happens, it happens. I mean, for me, given that I've had to host a stream, if I were to click the button on the top right which says end stream, I mean, that would be an absolute failure. But before we go on to the main topic, I was going to ask you about Manchester United because, as I said, prior to beating Crystal Palace in the League Cup, you also did secure a morale-boosting win over Burnley that weekend. In fact, no, it wasn't Burnley. I think it was.
Yeah, it was Burnley. It was Burnley that we secured.
Oh yeah. It was Burnley. Yes, I was right.
Yeah,
So
then we
just trying to make
secured
sure I
like a morale boost against Crystal Palace.
yeah, exactly. So obviously on Saturday the games that were played were Crystal Palace against Fulham, which was goalless. Luton Town against Wolverhampton Wanderers, which finished 1-1. City against Forest, which finished in a 2-0 win, although they had Rodri sent off. Brentford suffering a shock 3-1 defeat to Everton, who are, of course, predicted to go down, but seem to be recovering. I think once Dominic Calvert-Lewin comes back into the picture, things will be fine. Then, of course, Manchester United beating Burnley 1-0. And then, of course, on Sunday, we had Brighton beating Bournemouth, Villa beating
Villa, Villa what?
Yeah, okay. So now I'm back. But going back to United against Burnley, obviously, if we were to take a look at the game, the results that you had, you weren't exactly winning games left, right, and center. So you needed a result, and it was I wouldn't necessarily say a scrappy 1-0 win, but it was a win nonetheless, and that puts you back up to eighth in the table, below Aston
It
Villa, of
was
course, on goal difference. But
ninth place.
huh?
I'm saying we're ninth place, not eighth.
Okay, but how did you rate the performance on Saturday, and how do you think it'll this win and also beating Crystal Palace will at least hopefully start a recovery? Because one thing I will say in Ten Hag's favour is that last season you had a slightly worse start.
Now I'll say maybe yeah we did have our start last season, but also this start has been also been shaky with like two wins and then also two losses. So we haven't like found consistency yet. And also I think also the win I expected us to win, but maybe by two extra goals, 3-0. Because if you look at Man United's team quality and then compared to Burnley, we are better in terms of quality. Even though you can say Burnley did beat us in the pre in closed door friendly. Was it 3-0?
Hmm.
When United played Burnley closed door, we were beaten 3-0 in that friendly. So also I was also scared about that as well, thinking that Burnley could repeat that now with fans in the stadium.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, obviously, pre-season games and actual league games are always going to be chalk and cheese, and it's always how you perform in the league that counts. I mean, many have been the times that Arsenal would win, the Emirates Cup, the pre-season tournament, and it didn't translate to league success. So pre-season really for me is just a glorified scrimmage to sort of help you get back to get to fitness for the season, and you can't
no,
really take
I
too
think
much into all of
it
that.
doesn't really play season because the season had already begun. It was after the Wolves game that we played, like Burnley, close door.
Hmm.
So can you really say that that was preseason or?
Maybe. But again, it's always how I think the league games obviously will have a lot more in terms of weightage, and even in closed door friendlies, you find out what works and what doesn't. And at least now you've started to win again. They might not be very strong teams, but at least it'll provide you uh, some confidence going forward. If hopefully some more issues with the squad and the team will be resolved in due course. But in the meantime, let's take a look at the. We're just going to start by taking a look at the North London game in question, and so I will just share the screen, which
I was
had
actually looking at. Let's look at the lineup, and it's the same way how they lined up against us, Tottenham. But the only difference is Johnson is Johnson. Oh yeah, Johnson played. Now the only difference is that
Johnson came on.
you're saying?
Yeah,
Hello?
so this is the lineup that I've shared right now. This was the lineup for the derby, and hmm, just hold on a minute. I'll give me a couple. Give me 10 seconds. Okay, so I just had to take a small break and change my internet connection. I keep forgetting that the connection I normally have sometimes blows hot and cold very badly. Thank God for hotbots. So, Kyle, if you're back, yeah, cool.
Yeah, I'm back.
So this was effectively the lineup that Arsenal started with, the 4-3-3. And there's always
Yeah,
a part of me that really thinks that the 4-2-3-1 that we employed last season would have been much better. We had injury problems though because Gabriel Martinelli and Leandro Trossard were both ruled out with problems. So Jesus, arguably the better striker, was shunted out to the left, leaving Edward Nketiah in. And the biggest problem with Eddie Nketiah is that he doesn't have the ability to operate as the lone striker in a 4-2-3-1 formation, which is why we've had to use the 4-3-3 just to accommodate him. And yesterday, of course, he offered absolutely nothing. Saka, of course, up front on the right, Odegaard behind him in the middle, along with Declan Rice in the midfield. And we didn't start Kai Havertz, hallelujah, but instead we had Fabio Vieira and the
yeah.
usual flat back four of Ben White, William Saliba, Gabriel Magalhaes, and Alexander Zinchenko at left back. We're going to talk about Zinchenko
Goalkeeper
a little bit,
it was
but
different.
yeah, and of course, I mean, obviously, Ramsdale has been told in no uncertain terms that he has to raise his standards in order to win back his spot in the Arsenal team, and that can only be a good thing. It can only be a good thing, and I'm not going to sit here and say, feel sorry for the poor fella. I'm not necessarily a big fan of his. I'm sure you'll know that, but having said all of that, I don't necessarily think he's a poor keeper. He's just prone to a lot of you know uh, mishaps more often than not, and he just doesn't concentrate very much. So we started with Raya, and if we take a look at this formation, this is the 4-2-3-1 that I always wish Arsenal would go back to playing. Vicario in goal, Pedro Porro at right back, Udogi, the young left back, along with Mickey van der Ven and Christian Romero in the centre of defence, Pape Sarr and Yves Bissouma, the two defensive midfielders, Dejan Kulusevski, Jimmy Maddison playing that number 10 role, which matches his jersey, along with Brennan Johnson on the left, and Heung-min Son up front. Now, you were saying that this was the same lineup which started against Manchester United, were you? Kyle? Well, in the meantime, we do have Hannah with
I'm back.
us.
Yes,
Yeah. So we've had some issues, obviously, with the Wi-Fi. Hannah with Carl's Wi-Fi. First of all, how did you enjoy the rugby?
sensational. That game, very good game.
Wonderful, wonderful,
Oh,
wonderful.
Who,
So it's just
who won?
so
Uruguay won.
By what scoreline?
36-26.
So that plus 10.
Yeah, 10
Yeah.
points difference.
The most important thing for them was that they got a bonus point by scoring 4 tries. So, Carl, you were saying that this was the lineup which started against Manchester United, weren't you?
Yeah, I was saying it's somehow similar because except from Harvard's not starting and Vieira starting, and also the goalkeeper change. But the
Yeah,
rest
that
is
was the
similar.
Arsenal. Yeah, but what about the
And
Tottenham
also, and
lineup?
also Jesus did not start against United, but he came on later on.
Yeah,
On
So I
United,
actually don't see any changes he made. It's actually the
on the
same
United
lineup.
lineup.
right. Okay. So these of course were the lineups, and we know the formations that were being played. And Hannah, I wonder if you've got your board ready.
I'm just getting the Arsenal lineup. But we can look into Tottenham. Let me just get there. Of course, you guys are playing Brentford. Up the bees. Come on.
Yep.
But you know what's
Kick off
interesting?
about an hour from now.
I'm saying, you
Um,
know what's interesting is that Tottenham kept the same lineup as they did against us.
mm, that's so Tottenham, of course, in blue. More blue. I'm just getting awesome lineup. So yeah. It was something like this almost. Vieira in the 8 and Odegaard in the 10. Vieira was a bit deep, I think, Manny. You can agree almost.
Yeah, sort of. I think obviously seeing how Odegaard he does like to move a little bit up front and assume
Or
the number
or
10
was
role, but
Vieira closer to Odegaard?
I think you would say that he was a little bit more in between Zinchenko and Jesus, maybe. But I don't think he was
Oh
offering
yeah,
very much in the midfield. I don't think he was offering very much in the midfield, to be
right.
fair.
Yeah, that is the two teams. So you're saying was he like next Rice or more next to
But just put it a little bit further to the left, a little bit further to the left,
yeah.
a little bit further.
And,
That's it.
Yeah, he
and
was
And
playing
Rice
Rice,
on the
and
left.
obvious. Rice was more in the center. Yeah.
yeah, and then Odegaard just ahead on the right hand side. Um, so yeah, almost like that. Tottenham these two basically. Um, but I want to pose a question to you guys. Of course, Tottenham basically they Ange likes the system, and it works for him. Big question is Charleston. Of course, he came on later on. How big of a difference you guys think that was? The change to make Sun striker and bench Richarlison.
I feel like the Charlison's like substitution was there to like to like rest Sun. It didn't make any difference.
Don't think it made any difference. So uh,
It was just to
I
rest
think it,
Sun. That way.
I think for me it makes a big difference in I think the way Tottenham play because now they're almost more counter attacking. So and it unlike Richarlison, Sun makes those starting runs. So I think it gives more stability to Tottenham in the way they play. Um, I don't know if he split striker against a team where they have dominated possession. I'll just check their fixtures. Um, but well, 2-1 against Sheffield. Look against Sheffield. He started as striker, and did it go that well? They scored two late goals, so that creates a lot of chances. 28 shots. So um, I'm just checking the other games against Burnley. I believe Richarlison started. No, it was Son up top. And he backed 3 goals. So I think there has been a difference, especially when you look at the amount of chances created and goals they have scored. Of course, when did he made that switch? I think against Bournemouth, he made that switch. No, was still was after was after Bournemouth he made the switch, and against Bournemouth they scored 2 goals. And since Bournemouth, of course, they lost in the penalty shootout to Fulham in the Carabao Cup, but that doesn't matter. They scored 5 goals against Burnley, scored 2 against Sheffield, and then scored 2 against Arsenal. So I think even if you look at the chances created, it's a lot more. So I think there's more fluidity um, between the two, but between in the team. But one big question with Sana striker is the wingers. They don't. I've looked at Poch system now, and the wingers don't really create much or score much. Um, but again, I think a Tottenham fan might tell me something different. But of what I've seen of Tottenham, the wingers I don't think does much work. I think it's more central, and then pass it to the wing, and he cuts in. Um, I don't know, Manny. What do you think?
Well, first of all, let me say right now that Harry Kane's departure has really allowed Heung-min Son to assume that centre forward role with a great deal of gusto because when you're in a situation where you have two centre forwards but insist on playing a lone striker, you effectively expect the second one to just drop off a little bit and not really contribute too much and also do a lot more in terms of link-up play. And of course, strikers are good at link-up play, but I think Conte expected Kane to be the one with most of the goals without realizing that Heung-min Son had so much more in terms of attacking potential. So attacking talent especially. and he could score some really good goals. So, as Chelsea fan has said in the chat, Son has been class this season, and him occupying that centre role, he offers a lot more than not only Kane but also Richarlison, who seems to be more of a predatory finisher. But with Son running, making those runs, the way Kulusevski, and Kulusevski combined together down that right wing, and even Pedro Porro providing some decent support, he had the left side once again off balance. And Arteta will just never learn his lesson that you cannot simply aim to play a system where, Zinchenko ends up cutting in all the time. I will say in defense of the Ukrainian that he has at least improved his positional awareness somewhat, but still on Sunday, you could. It was ridiculous to see Kulusevski and Son making hay down that right side, and even Madison was coming in and causing more than a few problems. And I just think Kulusevski, obviously, his role will be a lot more pronounced. Losing Ivan Perisic to an injury, a severe injury, is a very, very big blow, because you just wonder whether that left side will be taken care of. But Brennan Johnson also looked really good when he was on. And I think Johnson, once he shakes off his injury blues, I think he went off as a bit of a precaution more than anything else, will certainly have a role to play and for Tottenham. And those two, wide attacking midfielders, they're proof of why that 4-2-3-1 system works an absolute treat, because they're able to. They don't really need to cover too much ground on the. They can just run right forward, and it's the two defensive midfielders, Basuma and Porro, who normally take up the defensive midfield duties, and they're the ones who make sure they marshal the defense and get everyone into position. So with those two defensive midfielders, you get a lot more in terms of defensive leadership. They could be almost like sweepers. I will say that Pape Sarr in particular started off being very clumsy with his footwork and ball control, as was Basuma in a way. And I can never forget how James Maddison inexplicably gave the ball away to Gabriel Jesus. And I was thinking, he's got to score, and he didn't. But Spurs grew into the game, and they allowed the system of Ange Ball to really take root. And this system that Ange is applying is the same system that we used last season. The big difference is, because we lost Gabby Jesus to injury and Eddie Nketiah couldn't play as the lone striker, we had to switch it to a 4-3-3. I want to see Eddie Nketiah dropped and Martinelli and Trossard back to fitness. And the worst part is that Bukayo Saka could be absent for Bournemouth. So having gotten rid of Nicola Pepe, we've now got to have Reece Nelson. But the reason why I'm emphasizing those things is that 4-2-3-1 system has plenty of merits, and you can see that's a system which suits Kulusevski and Johnson and or Perisic perfectly, because they don't really have to do too much in terms of necessarily running, and they're able to be a lot more proactive in the attack and make sure and make everything just drive forward. In a 4-3-3 system, sometimes you don't get that, and it was just as well that we didn't start Havertz on Sunday, because that would have overworked Declan Rice and Martin Odegaard. But you could see how after growing into the game, Basuma out-muscled Rice off the park, and Rice was not just undercooked, he looked a little bit raw to me. And that is one of the benefits of Ange Ball, but it really only is Arteta Ball, which Ange is using right now, because he's got the players who can play in that position. I'm just glad that I never have to see the 4-3-4-3 nonsense that Conte used ever again, because it produced some pretty poor football at times from Spurs.
Yeah. I don't know how. What do you make of Ange Ball? Of course, Tottenham must adopting a system where they have two players who sets, and like Manny mentioned, they almost do the system of also last season. And I think, but one main difference is of course the striker, but the two stadiums where also had more was that Xhaka more attacking and Partey was their own lone DM. Do you think, let's say, Basuma or Sar gets injured, that Tottenham will definitely fall off? If if we look at the players on the bench for Spurs, I believe. Let me have a look. Of course, Royberg seems to be the favorite. I believe. What's that other one's name? Is injured. Um, played last season for them for Tottenham. Um, what's his name? He's also a six for Spurs. Can't remember his name. Bentancur, that's his name. Bentancur. Do you think, of course, Bentancur is injured. Do you think maybe a Saar or Basuma gets injured, Roybia can do that job of a Saar or Basuma? Carl, just muted. Just
Yeah.
unmuted, Mark.
What is the
Um,
question?
if Royberg, if can Royberg fulfill the position that Basuma or Saad does, do you think, or do you think the drop off is too massive and maybe they need to switch system?
For Ben, for Johnson.
Now
Oh,
for Royberg, if he comes on from the bench and he comes in for Saad Basuma, do you think there is a quality drop off?
I feel like there will be a quality of drop off because the way Basuma, like the way he holds the midfield, he can tell that. I don't know how to explain, but he's a good player with a good quality balls.
Oh, okay, fair. Yeah, I get what you mean. Like you all that midfield together. Be up
Yeah,
yourself, Bobby. Hashtag Bobby out kids in. If you know it, you know. But Bobby, if you are in the chat, I don't know. Can you maybe, of course, you are a Spurs fan. If Weber does come in for Basuma or Sa, do you think he can fulfill that role, or will you need to change systems? Question to you there, Bobby, in the chat. But I think we've discussed enough on Spurs. I don't know if there's anything else you guys maybe want to ask.
I could possibly make an input and say that Basuma could very well be a loss, but Højbjerg was a key player for Spurs last season. I know that's not necessarily the best argument, but if he gets himself up to speed, there's no reason why he can't play a role if Basuma were to drop out, because you could see, and we're going to talk about Arsenal in a minute, but you could see the consequences of switching from a 4-2-3-1 to another system. And I just don't know if there can be another system which would really bring out the best in the talents available in that team. I mean, Conte always liked to say that the majority of players in that Spurs squad were not his purchases because he obviously had a system in mind. He didn't think that those players in question would be suited to playing in that. And of course, when they tried to change the system at St James's Park, when Ryan Mason was in charge on an interim basis, they got completely taken to the cleaners. But the 3-4-3 has been abandoned. It's good to see a system which certainly has a great deal more in terms of dynamism about it. It is the system that Gareth Southgate likes to use for England, not the best example. And so back to your question, I think if Højbjerg were asked to do that role, I'm sure he'd fulfill it. But it's another reminder that Spurs will need to do a little bit more work in the transfer market, especially if they can get another good quality defensive midfielder. That would be good for them. They're also going to need to try and get another striker, and it would be.
Højbjerg
He's
only
only
good for six
yeah.
in end system, so we need another cam.
Yeah. So you might need to buy someone in January, and certainly another striker who could help Son, because I don't think Ange will be keen on keeping
Yeah.
Richarlison if
Um,
he doesn't really step up enough.
Osherman, big fallout between Osherman and Napoli. So I think clubs are lacking around
I
Osherman.
I don't think it's really a fallout. I think that's a matter of like legal. Like there was something negative posted about him by the club. I think that's a
Yeah, on
matter.
TikTok he missed a chance and the club made a TikTok video out of it. So, but I just think like relationship wise, I think um it's um it's very toxic then, even if it's legal. Just Bobby says, "Nah, money, which gonna come alive and score 20 goals."
Ooh, backing his
How?
boy. I love it.
Who knows? Who knows? It is an interesting one. That's one with Tottenham, but definitely reinforcement is needed. But look, the starting 11 of Tottenham is working. Um, and hopefully, from a Tottenham's perspective, they don't get massive injuries. But moving on to Mick Arteta Ball, of course, money absolutely loves this rock and roll football. Um, but I'll first take before Manik does come in. Saka, I'll start off with Saka. Played brilliantly, but these past two games, but how big of a concern is it if you guys don't um, get another rock twin in January, or will you use Reece Nelson more, or what's the story?
Well, he has no choice but to use Reece Nelson, given how he coldly and arrogantly got rid of Nicola Pepe, who still, in some ways, has enough ability to be trusted to do a decent job for us. And the folly, Hanno, of continuing to play Bukayo Saka is just, come full circle. The chickens have come home to roost. And we see basically that a lot more is expected of him. He did start well against Udogi, but I think Bobby can agree with me when he said that once Udogi grew into the game, he was able to prevent Saka from being too influential. And let's bear in mind, our goals came from an own goal, a Saka shot
Um,
on target, which
the,
was
I just saw your lineup. Do you know who's captain? Chelsea legend, UCL winner for Chelsea Football Club. Jorginho captains the side tonight for Arsenal.
oh boy, Georgie Porgy, pudding and pie, made a mistake and made Arsenal fans cry. And because the Spurs
And
came out to play, that's 2 precious points that we threw away. I'll come to
and,
Jorginho in a minute. He's not escaping criticism from me. But
and
back to
Emil
Saka.
Smith Rowe debut for him.
Good.
No,
Good.
And you
but do
got
you believe Jorginho should be sold in the next summer window,
Look, he's
or
he's out
maybe
of
he should have
contract
been
at
sold in summer?
he's at he's out of contract at the end of the season anyway, and I believe there is an option to take him up for another year. But I think if we fail to achieve anything, he may decide to leave, and all the better, I would say, because there is no way that I would ever want to see him, at the club. He has been he has provided some decent moments, but all the more often than not, he's been quite disappointing in terms of his. I mean, he's lost a lot of his stamina, and he's not quite the same force that he was. But yeah, Arteta ruining him and his potential. Absolutely, Bobby. Arteta will be the decline of him. And Udogie, I think you'll agree, grew into the game and, was able to prevent him from being influential. And the two goals that Saka scored were an own goal and a penalty. Saka seems to be able to provide some moments of genuine class, but then he ends up becoming a passenger because the poor chap's being overworked. And this 4-3-3 system, mind you, it's bad enough that we have to find a way to shoehorn Kai Havertz into the team. He's been absolutely useless so far as a midfielder. And Eddie Nketiah also offered nothing. Mickey van der Ven had the measure of him brilliantly. One particular tackle in the first half encapsulated that. But this 4-3-3 stuff, far from being rock and roll football, is some of the most uninspiring, clueless stuff we've ever seen. And of course, as I said, with Zinchenko going AWOL, Kulusevski, Heung-min Son, and even Jimmy Maddison were having a whale of a time down Tottenham's right. And I do seem to remember, of course, I know that the first goal was basically scored from the left, but it was Kulusevski's work down the right which resulted in that cross, which Raya thought he could palm away. I think he probably felt as though he had to consider the trajectory of the ball. But, I can certainly, excuse him for that because he has looked really solid. But he has to remember, don't flap at things. You've got to be more decisive than that. And when you're as short as he is, he's shorter than Ramsdale, about 6 or 6'1". You can't hope to be a hero and try and, get every single cross or whatever. Would have been best served waiting for the ball to drop and then catching it instead. And then, of course, it was Maddison who skinned Saka and on the left and ended up, laying it on a plate for Heung-min Son to get it home. And that's a lesson to Bukayo. Don't even think of trying to troll people by mimicking their celebration tactics. So it was a question basically of Maddison having an inspired game, and Kulusevski and Son and even Maddison making our left side look anatomically weak. And I was on a stream yesterday with Bobby and, of course, Nipun Sharma. Big up to the Football for Thought podcast. That was good fun. And I think Bobby's just said it in the chat. The best thing that Arsenal did this season so far is not go for Maddison. Thank you very much indeed. Maddison, Odegaard, and Rice would have been lethal. I think a reason why we didn't go for him, Bobby, is because, he would have been seen in some ways as direct competition to the Norwegian golden boy, and Arteta didn't want that. But, I do take the point that, they could have swapped duties. But if we play the 4-2-3-1 formation, Odegaard slots into Maddison's position. So 2 into 1 just doesn't go. And that's always going to be a bit of a problem. But given that we spent more money for Havertz than you lot did for Jimmy, I am seething, hopping mad. And, that is what it is. Obviously, the midfield as well, we had Declan Rice, Odegaard, and Fabio Vieira. Rice, of course, was in the middle. But the Rice-Basuma battle was always going to be key. And once Basuma got over his jitters, he actually dominated that area of midfield and made Rice look very ordinary indeed. And we just didn't seem to have an answer to that midfield problem. And it was telling that we took off Rice and Vieira to bring on the two Chelsea rejects in Jorginho and Kai Havertz. And do not get me started on that little piece of dawdling from Senor Freo. He should have known a lot better. And Odegaard, and as for Havertz, he looked a little bit slightly more active, but again, didn't contribute very much. And we're still continuing to see why, at 65 million bob, he's an absolute waste of dosh. We just didn't seem to have much of an answer. And of course, with Saka limping off and now not feeling at his best and possibly missing the Bournemouth game, he's not even in the squad for tonight's League Cup game at Brentford. That tells you everything. If he misses Bournemouth and can't play, then questions will be asked. And so, as I said to Hannah, we will have to, keep playing Reece Nelson because we don't really have any other genuine options, especially not one who can cut in and shoot with his left foot the way Pepe used to do.
But
And
but but will you agree with me that Ramsdale could be out of his way next summer
who?
if Ramsdale?
I'll come to Ramsdale in a minute, and I'll talk about him. And obviously, when it came to the question of substitutions, I already mentioned that he had made those two substitutions at half time. And some of his other substitutions didn't seem to make too much in terms of sense to me. I mean, he brought on, he only brought on Emil Smith Rowe with seconds to go. I mean, minutes to go, which was utterly stupid. It reminded me in many ways um, of when Gareth Southgate brought Jack Grealish on with only minutes to go for England against France. And that really, really, really made me so angry. And he brought on. I'm going to go just try and go back to the game in question to find out what these substitutions were, because a lot of criticism of Arteta again is really justified in terms of his own substitutions, because more often than not he gets them wrong. But yeah, he brought on Smith Rowe with 3 minutes to go as a replacement for Saka. And why he saw it fit to take off Gabriel Jesus and bring on Reece Nelson, I would never know, because the ideal substitution would have been to stick Jesus in the centre as more of a threat and bring Nelson on the left, or maybe even bring Smith Rowe on the left and Nelson on the right. Why Saka couldn't have been substituted earlier, I will never know. And that is another thing which we see with Arteta in terms of him taking a great deal of time to do things and not really seeing everything immediately. And if he's that concerned about Gabriel Jesus' fitness, why can't he be that concerned about Bukayo Saka's fitness? And Chelsea fans said it perfectly. All we can do is hope that Rice and Saka can get fit for the Manchester City game. It is a possibility, but again, we have to hope. And I think in this case, Bobby, Chelsea fan was speaking on a general context here, because obviously, any fan of any team will want to see his own team's best players come back, and that's all the way it works. And Kyle, coming back to your question on Ramsdale, it's still too early to write him off. I think he can still certainly play a role for Arsenal. He is, of course, starting tonight, and if he doesn't win back his place in time, and if he doesn't earn success in the competitions, and does decide that he would rather leave than stick around, no hard feelings. We should get a good price for him and possibly use that money to buy a decent keeper. Ideally, in the spirit of sell, bench, and start, I'd sell Ramsdale, bench Raya, and offer a blank check to Aston Villa to bring Emi Martinez back to the club. But I just don't think that the Birmingham side will ever countenance that, and even Martinez will not want to do that. And crucially, I don't think Arteta will be interested in that, because for some reason he considers Martinez to be a little bit of an egomaniac. Look, he's a winner. He has a right to be an ego, but enough of him. I would say that once again, Arteta got it badly wrong in terms of his substitutions, and he's still being handicapped with that 4-3-3 formation if he has to play either Fabio Vieira or even Kai Havertz in that position. Ideally, he would have kept Kieran Tierney and moved Zinchenko into that position to provide that that sort of ballast. And especially seeing how well Tierney has been doing in Spain, even if he has been continually taken off after about an hour or so to protect his fitness or whatever. I mean, against Inter Milan, he had a stormer of a game and kept Denzel Dumfries quiet. That tells you all you need to know. And that is another reason why I can never, ever, ever get on board tactically with Mikel Arteta. And I don't care what people say about the XG stats. We were lucky to come away with points against Fulham at home and also now against Spurs at home. And if we don't tactically shape up and get our act together, we could be in for a world of trouble.
Yeah, um, I agree. Bobby says best thing also that um, the
Yes, I
season
mentioned that. I
well,
mentioned
is
that.
not. Oh,
That was the worst thing we did because we sold more, spent more for Havertz than they did for Jimmy.
um, where is the comments? Where is the comment? Um, hmm. Honestly, I think we will be in a relegation battle, so probably 17th by December. Um,
Come on, be
but yeah,
positive. I know. I know. We're going to see how well you lot do tonight,
a lot.
and I think we'll see. I think if you can secure a win tonight, maybe that could be the start of things improving. Look, he's
Okay,
got, as I
Chelsea is
said, he's
playing
got.
who?
Huh?
Oh, who is Chelsea
I
playing?
Brighton, no chance
Uh,
for winning.
yeah, I don't see
Even
Chelsea
Kyle
winning
knows.
there.
Even Kyle knows.
Yeah, I don't see Chelsea
No
winning there.
chance.
There's no
Let's hope
chance.
they
Even
aren't fit.
Atlo will be lucky there.
Bobby, I'm in the same boat as you. Well, I wouldn't want any of the best players to be available. Um, but yeah, I think is there anything else really to discuss? Oh, on Arsenal, Carl, got
I
anything?
don't think Chelsea better to play their best players since afterwards they're playing against Aston Villa in the
No, no,
weekend.
on Arsenal.
Or Arsenal. I feel like Arteta should improve the way he manages Arsenal's like tactics.
Yeah, in-game tactics of subs and that.
Yeah, and also like he should make the right substitutions.
Yeah, yeah, I get you. Um, but not 4-0, I think 2-0. 2-0.
And if he improves on that, he can win. He can like provide Pep a good title charge. That's what I feel.
Yeah, I think if he gets his subs right, that's a massive thing. So yeah, I think that's everything. Manny, you've said your piece on Arsenal, or you want to continue?
I've said my piece. I don't really know if I can say much more. I think I concluded it perfect by saying that unless we shape up tactically and get the players we need, we're going to be in for a world of trouble. And you know, if we're not careful, especially, we could burn Saka out. If we achieve nothing this season, don't be surprised if he and a couple of other Highlanders decide, you know what, this is ridiculous. I've had enough. I want out.
Yeah,
Question,
I won't also be
just
surprised. And
um,
I feel like the next club Saka should go to be a club that where he gets stressed at least because at Arsenal he has been playing every match ever since he broke into the first team lineup.
yeah, um, uh, question, Manny, Jorginho, Rice midfield. Can you see that?
Um, in as much as I cannot forgive Georgie for that mistake, we also have to consider that he hasn't played too many minutes this season. He obviously came in and was expected to do a job almost immediately. If Partey isn't fit and we don't have another CAM, ironically, we do have Mohamed El Neni, who we had signed to a new contract, a contract extension, that is. But I don't think he's seen any squad minutes. I don't even know if he's been called up to squads. So, push to shove, we might have to stick with a Rice Jorginho defensive midfield duo. But in order to play the 4-2-3-1, we have got to drop Edward and Ketia and not even consider bringing him back into the squad. I'm sorry, he ain't good enough. And if we can sell him in January or send him on loan in January, all the better. Eddie's just not ready. And he makes our front line look unsteady.
Good one, good one. Yeah, good stream. Thank you, Justin, and as always, thank you for joining. Be up yourself, Bobby. Yeah, need to get you on. Just need to sort out the time differences. Me and Canadian times we don't work together. There's so many times I was like, just choose two or three, not six, um, or eight. How many times on six there? There's loads. But yeah, thank you guys for joining. Kyle, where can the people find you on your socials?
Oh, they can follow me on Instagram at underscore F4YT 2019 underscore. And also they can subscribe to my YouTube channel at Football Overseas, where I post like football predictions and I also do like Man United content and other like big news that's happening in the football industry. Also like do like other sports like NFL. I'm planning to go to an NBA soon. Also do like rugby, like the Rugby World Cup that I've been doing with Hano on the side. Yeah. So that's where they can find me.
Yeah, do subscribe to his channel, and then Mr. Awesome Money, where can the people find you?
Well, there's only one Mr. Arsenal, Tony Adams, of course. But yeah, you can find me here on this channel, just contributing to whatever streams we've got coming up, and always enjoy doing that. Huge shout out to the other channels I'm on: Del Boy Gunner TV, Oris Talks Football, Tony Claude Gunner TV, Danny AFC TV. Might be possibly doing a watch along with him for tonight's game at the community stadium if I can find a way to watch the match. I'll see. Up the cherries in all departments, the Bournemouth fan channel. We will be releasing another episode of Cherry Picking this week, so do please check that out. Also, big up to AFC Talk Show TV, Eugene Spurs Asia TV, the Football for Thought podcast, where I did a stream last night with Nippon and, of course, Bobby, who's in the chat, and also Villa TV and also Northside LDN. I've been on a few streams with him. I hope to join him again very soon if he does leave the floor open. Always good to hear him, rant and rave with very good reason in both English and Portuguese. Can't miss that. And several other channels that I can't really name at the moment, but all very close to me indeed, and always a pleasure to be associated with all of them. Very close to my heart. Big up to everyone in the chat: Chelsea Fan, Up Mystic Werewolf, and of course Bobby K from Three Sports Boys. If I've missed anyone, no, I haven't. All of you who've been in the chat have contributed to this stream being what it is, and also are big friends of our channel. And all I can say is just enjoy the rest of the week until the weekend. Enjoy the sports that are on offer tonight. If you're able to watch the League Cup tonight, by all means, enjoy yourselves. Till then, take care, stay safe, stay happy, and don't do anything that us panelists wouldn't do. For now, though, farewell to thee and goodbye to you. Cheers.
Go. As for me, for this is the wrong one. There we go. I pressed that wrong one there. But on Instagram, Hanu_coach_corner, and Twitter, Anu70830030, TikTok Coach Corner 1. Do make sure you check also our shorts out on TikTok and Instagram, and of course on YouTube. So yeah, now smash that subscribe button and like button as you go off here, or if you're watching this on playback and haven't done that, do please do that. And we'll see you all in a bit, people. Peace.